I think we should settle this before the wedding." The room went quiet. Christmas music drifted somewhere in the background, but it felt miles away. Ethan's father reached into his blazer and slid a thick white envelope across the table until it stopped at my plate. My daughter Emily looked from the envelope to me, her smile fading. Ethan leaned back, arms crossed, wearing the grin of a man who already believes he's won. My name wasn't on the envelope, neither was Emily's. Just one word, printed neatly: family. I picked it up. The paper was heavier than it should have been. "I think you'll understand why this is necessary," Ethan said, calm but proud. I didn't answer. I opened it while everyone watched. "My name is Richard Walker. I'm 72. Most people look at my 20-year-old truck, my patched coat, my resoled boots, and assume I'm just another old man stretching a fixed income. I never correct them. What they don't know is that I retired from the United States Army as a 4-star general after 38 years of service. My pension alone is a little over $28,000 a month. My house has been paid off for years. My late wife Margaret and I built a quiet fortune, and I've never once felt the need to prove it. Margaret used to say it every Christmas while wrapping presents. "Richard, if you ever want to know someone's character, let them believe you have nothing." I didn't understand her then. I understand her completely now. Emily had begged me to come to this Christmas with Ethan's family. "It'll mean a lot to him," she said. I'd already noticed the changes in Ethan over the past year. Nothing dramatic, just a man who judged restaurants by their valet service and people by their watches. He was never cruel, just quietly dismissive. Emily either hadn't noticed or hadn't wanted to. So that morning, I put on my oldest brown coat, the one with the replaced zipper Margaret used to tease me about, and drove out to their brick house at the end of a manicured cul-de-sac. Ethan greeted me first, eyes flicking to my coat. "You should let Emily buy you a decent winter coat." His mother welcomed me politely. His father shook my hand, and unlike his son, looked me in the eye instead of at my truck. Dinner moved through vacation homes and stock portfolios. At one point, Ethan laughed. "If you're still broke after 65, you probably made bad decisions your whole life." A few people chuckled. His mother added, almost sympathetically, that it must be hard living on a fixed income. Before I could speak, Ethan answered for me. "Richard manages." I only smiled. I wasn't there to defend myself. I was there to observe. Dessert came, coffee slowed the room, and then Ethan's father stood, walked to the sideboard, and slid that envelope across the table. A premarital agreement. No one breathed while I read it. I folded it back into the envelope without a word. "I'm sure you understand," Ethan said. "It's standard these days." "I believe every family should protect what they've worked for," I said, and relief crossed his face. He thought I'd agreed. His father didn't relax at all. He kept watching me like he suspected something everyone else had missed. Emily stared into her coffee, and I thought of another Christmas, decades earlier, when she was 8 and wanted the newest bike on the block. Margaret bought her a scratched, second-hand one instead. "Ride it a week," she'd said, and a week later, Emily came home glowing. My best friend didn't care what bike I rode. Margaret only looked at me and said, "People who care about appearances usually reveal themselves before you even ask." I never forgot that. Margaret had been gone 6 years by then. Cancer doesn't care about medals or command. After she died, I made a decision. I wouldn't change how I lived just because I could afford to. The truck stayed. The coat stayed. My instructor at West Point once told me, "Rank is borrowed." At 22, I hadn't understood. By 72, I did completely. Everything eventually belongs to someone else. Only character survives you. That's why I never mentioned my career after retiring. I preferred talking fishing and grandchildren to being thanked for my service over breakfast. Ethan had impressed me once, arriving at our first meeting with homemade pecan pie, asking about my garden. Then, slowly, success changed him. He snapped at a waitress who spilled water. He told Emily I should sell my house because the neighborhood had peaked 30 years ago. He eyed my old toolbox in the garage and said I could afford better if I'd planned my finances. I let him assume what he wanted. Assumptions reveal more than questions ever do. 3 weeks before Christmas, Emily called, sounding uncertain. "I just want everything to go well," she said, too quickly. A father knows when something's being left unsaid. That night, I opened Margaret's cedar chest. pulled out the old brown coat, and said aloud to an empty room, "Well, Maggie, I guess we're about to find out what kind of family our girl is marrying into." Back at the table, the folder now open in front of me, Ethan asked, "So what do you think?" "I think legal documents deserve careful reading," I said, and kept going. Most of the agreement listed his assets, investments, business, the Myrtle Beach condo, then a page on Emily, current assets, minimal, expected inheritance, unknown. Someone had painted my daughter as entering this marriage with nothing. That assumption hadn't come from nowhere. Emily, his mother tried to smooth things over. We felt families shouldn't keep financial secrets. "That's a fair point," I said. Emily looked at me, apologetic, thinking I was embarrassed. I wasn't. I was only curious. Trying to redirect, his mother asked about my career. 38 years, I said. "What rank did you retire with?" Before I could answer, Ethan cut in. "Mom, military people never like talking about themselves," and unknowingly saved me from answering. His father noticed the interruption. I saw it land. Later, Emily opened my gift. A walnut keepsake box I'd spent 3 weeks building by hand. No nails, no hidden joints. Carved inside the lid. Family isn't built by money. It's built by showing up. Ethan's father ran his fingers over the grain. "My grandfather built furniture like this," he said. And for a moment something passed between us that had nothing to do with rank or money. Then Ethan opened his own gift, a designer watch, and held it up beside my scratched field watch. A gift from Margaret, 25 years old. "You should let Emily upgrade that too." I only said, "I don't think I could. It reminds me of someone." Emily squeezed my hand. She understood. After dinner, Ethan's father stepped onto the back porch alone. I followed. "You were an officer," he said, without turning around. "I can usually tell." "What gives it away?" "The posture." "What rank?" I said only that I'd retired satisfied. He nodded slowly. "I don't think you've told my son everything." Then quieter. "I've noticed it too." I was hoping tonight I'd be wrong. There was real sadness in his voice. A father who'd already been watching his son long before I arrived, and judging by his face, he didn't like what he'd seen. Back inside, I picked the envelope up one final time. "If Emily signs this tomorrow," I asked Ethan, "what exactly is she protecting?" "My family's assets. 15 years of building everything I have." "The problem isn't what you're protecting," I said. "It's what you're assuming." I tapped the page listing Emily's net worth, under $80,000, according to his attorney. Almost funny how inaccurate it was. "Have I ever shown you my investment accounts?" I asked Emily. "My retirement income? My trust documents?" "No," she said, embarrassed. "I never asked." I appreciated that, I told her, and reached into my coat. Not for a wallet, but for a worn leather folder Margaret had insisted I always carry. I slid my retired military ID across the table. Ethan picked it up first. His color drained. "General?" he whispered. His mother froze mid-reach. Emily's mouth fell open. "Dad." "A 4-star general," I said quietly. Tears filled her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "You never asked. I wanted you to know." His father finally spoke. "I thought so. The way you carry yourself. I asked what rank you retired with. You never answered." "I didn't need to," I said. His mother asked about the pension. I hesitated, but told them, a little over $28,000 a month. Complete silence. Then I pulled out the trust summaries. The house, already in Emily's name, 3 years now. The lake cabin. The investment accounts. Education trusts for future grandchildren. Charitable funds. Emily wasn't entering this marriage with nothing. She was entering it stronger than anyone at that table had imagined. I set the prenup on top of the trust documents. I think the full picture deserves to be seen. Ethan lowered himself onto the couch, the confidence gone out of him. "I owe you an apology," he said. "What are you apologizing for?" "I judged you based on the coat. The truck. I assumed if someone looked poor, then they probably were," I finished for him. "Yes, that's an honest answer." Emily looked at him. "I've been trying to tell you that for months." "I know," he said. "You just never listened." His father stood, walked to the tree, and finally said what he'd clearly been holding all night. "I didn't prepare that agreement because I thought Emily wanted your money. I prepared it because I wanted to know if my son had started believing money was the only thing worth protecting. He looked at Ethan directly. You stopped calling your grandmother when she went into assisted living. You complained about your cousin's wedding venue. You laughed at your roommate's old truck. And tonight, you introduced a good man like he needed saving. Ethan's shoulders fell. Emily said quietly, I've noticed it too. He stood, walked to the door, and carried my old coat back into the room like it was something fragile. I looked at this coat, he said, voice shaking, and thought it told me who you were. It never crossed my mind that maybe it was telling me who I was. He handed it to me. I'm sorry, Richard. Try again, I said. He hesitated. Then, for the first time in 3 years, I'm sorry, Dad. Emily cried again. Relieved tears this time. I stood and embraced him. Not because I was a general. Because for the first time, he saw me only as Emily's father. He picked the prenup back up. I don't want you signing this tonight, he told her. Then, to me, how do you spend 40 years as one of the most respected officers in the army and live like none of it mattered? Because it didn't, I said. Not after I retired. One day my medals belong to a museum. One day, every dollar any of us has belongs to someone else. What remains is how we treated people. 3 days later, Ethan called and asked to come alone. He arrived with sandwiches and coffee from my usual diner. We sat at my kitchen table, and he admitted he'd spent 3 years assuming I lived this way because I had no choice. I showed him an old photograph, Margaret and me outside our first house, 1,200 square feet, porch leaning slightly, happier than two people had any right to be. The happiest years of our marriage happened before we had very much, I told him. After retirement, I stopped chasing things and started protecting peace. He handed me a new envelope. Inside was the prenup, voided, stamped diagonally across every page. He and Emily were drafting new documents that protected them equally, along with a charitable foundation for veterans and military families. Margaret would have loved that. The wedding was pushed back 4 months. Ethan's request, not a demand. I want to earn this marriage, he told Emily. During those months, I watched him change in the quiet ways that matter. He visited the VA hospital with me, awkward at first, then simply listening. He called his grandmother every Sunday. He learned the waitress's name, Martha, and greeted her by it every time after. Character isn't proven in one conversation. It's proven in what you do when no one's watching. The wedding took place on a warm Saturday in May, at the small white church Margaret had always loved. Veterans from my old unit sat beside Ethan's business partners, and no one cared who had more money. I wore my suit and hung my old brown coat over my arm anyway, not because I needed it, but because it reminded me of Margaret and of the Christmas that changed everything. Ethan crossed the parking lot and pulled me into a real hug. Then he reached into my coat pocket and produced my old field watch, freshly serviced. It still looks old, I said. It should, he answered, and then, eyes wet. Thank you, Dad. I respected your rank the night I found out who you were, he told me before the ceremony. But I've spent 4 months respecting the man you chose to be. That's the only promotion that matters now, I said. People ask if that Christmas dinner changed our family. It didn't. It revealed us. My daughter's courage, a father's quiet disappointment, a young man's pride, and thankfully, his willingness to grow. Real wealth was never my pension or the property Margaret and I built. It was watching 2 families become one, not because of money, but because the truth finally made room for grace.